A couple of years ago, I uploaded what I consider to be my first real video on YouTube, that being the Touhou PC-98 characters that should come back. In that video, I went over all the PC-98 Touhou characters and talked about which characters I thought should come back and which ones shouldn't. And looking at the comments for that video, it seems like some people disagree with my opinions on the characters I thought didn't need to come back. So in this video, I want to go back over those characters and come up with a way that they can come back and join the Windows canon. So in case you didn't see that first video, it will probably help you if you watch that first. And there is another video I made that's about Makai, and I talk more about the Makai characters there. And I might refer to that video when going back over the Makai characters in those videos, but you probably don't really need to watch that one too unless you really want to. Now, while I am going to talk about the characters that I said before that I don't think need to come back, I'd still mainly stand by my opinion that I had with that first video. And I should remind you that those opinions aren't coming from me disliking the characters, but rather there really isn't a neat way to bring them to Windows canon. But I of course have come up with ways to bring them back. It just takes a bit more changing up the characters than what I was comfortable with in the original video. Also, I'm just going to skip over the mid-bosses, since there really is nothing to go off on with them, so I'm sorry to the fans of the PC-98 mid-bosses. Now with all that out of the way, let's get started with Singyoku. Now Singyoku actually has a very reasonable way that they can come back to Windows canon, and I'm surprised that I didn't come up with this when making the original video. The solution to bringing back Singyoku is with Misumaru. In case you forgot, Misumaru's whole thing is that she is a god that creates Magitamas, but she also seems to be able to create yin-yang orbs, since she is shown using them in her battle, and she even created Reimu's yin-yang orbs. So now we have Singyoku, who has three forms. One looks like a male shrine priest, another one looks like a female yokai or demon, and the last form appears to be some sort of yin-yang orb. So we can have Singyoku appear as a creation and possibly even a servant of Misumaru. In fact, the stage 4 boss of Touhou 18, it's some sort of giant bluish yin-yang orb. So maybe sometime Misumaru can reappear with a dark red yin-yang orb accompanying her, with said orb presumably being Singyoku. Now we have Yugen Magan and Elitz, who I didn't cover in the original PC-98 character video, but I did mention them in my Makai video, where it said they can just be random residents of Makai that can reappear there if we ever see more of Makai again. So now Kangara. It feels like Kangara is potentially the character that the most people were upset I didn't include as a character that I thought should come back, and most of those people said they want her back as the 4th Deva, but honestly I don't like that idea for her, mainly because we don't know for sure that she is an Oni, and if and when we do see the 4th Deva, I will not be surprised at all if it's not Kangara, and after that everyone's ideas of Kangara coming back will have to change. So my idea for how Kangara could come back is by making her a Kishin. You may be wondering what a Kishin is. Well, a Kishin is kind of like an Oni and a Shikigami slapped together, and if you want to know more about them, then I recommend watching MegaFrog's video about Oni. But as for this video, what a Kishin does is that they are tasked with killing or trapping hermits that have lived too long, with Suiki Kishinsho, the Kishin who appeared in Wild and Horn Hermit, tried to catch Seiga by drowning her in a huge pillar of water. So to me, Kangara can just be a Kishin that was just chilling in hell, waiting for her next assignment, when during the events of Highly Responsive, a stupid young shrine maiden tried to have a duel with her and somehow won. Or maybe you can just pretend that Kangara let her win. Now Ellen. Ellen is probably the hardest character to bring back because she really isn't a Touhou character. In case you don't know, Ellen is actually from a manga called Hatara Kimono, or Hard Worker, with her full name being Ellen Fuwa Fuwa Tama, and in Ellen's ending in Dendrine, she opens a magic shop named Fuwa Fuwa Ellen's Magic Shop in reference to her origins. So of course, the biggest issue with bringing her back is that she isn't even a Touhou character, and if she were to come back in modern Touhou, there will potentially be copyright problems. So the only way to have her back is by changing her design and possibly even her name. But at that point, she might as well be a brand new character, but for the sake of this video, I will try to come up with something for her. So my explanation for Ellen is to just introduce her as a new character that's heavily based on Ellen. Kind of like how Mizushi is sort of a Windows version of Mima. But now one issue I have with Ellen is that she is a magician, or rather a witch, and I feel like we already have enough of those in Gensokyo, so I like the idea of just throwing her into Makai. For my backstory for this version of Ellen, I like the idea that long ago she was an ordinary human from either Gensokyo or the outside world that started training to become a magician and eventually went to Makai to train there. However, over time she grew to love Makai and permanently moved there, where she opened up a magic shop selling potions and other magical goods to the Makai residents, and just like her original character, she also becomes immortally young with having a bad memory like in canon. So now Orange. I really don't know what to say for her. Her design is way too similar to Mei Ling, and they even have similar aspects to the character, like how they both try to pass themselves as not being yokai to Reimu. Honestly, I think the best explanation for her is to say she's just a younger Mei Ling. So Kurumi and Ellie are pretty hard to plate since they have ties to PC-98 Yuka, who resided in a mansion called Mugenkan, with Ellen being the gatekeeper of the mansion and Kurumi being the gatekeeper of the Lake of Blood, which is in front of the mansion. Now it's hard to put Ellie and Kurumi back with Yuka since Windows Yuka is a nomad who travels throughout Gensokyo to watch the different seasonal flowers, so it feels weird to have Kurumi and Ellie just join her with that. But I did come up with something for them to do in Windows canon, separate from Yuka, but my ideas for them aren't the best. Kurumi is a little tricky with her being a vampire, since in Windows canon there are only two vampires, being the Scarlet Sisters, and I feel that bringing in another vampire that is not related to them would be a bit odd, but there really isn't any other option. So my explanation for Kurumi being in the Windows canon is that she is just a random vampire yokai who lives in the Forest of Magic. I just think this is a fitting place for her, and I'm sure there's enough cover from the tree foliage that she should be protected from the sun even during the day. As for what she does there, I don't really know. She probably just hangs out there and tries to scare anyone she sees walking through the forest. Now for Ellie. I had a really hard time trying to do something with her. Ellie doesn't really have anything to her other than her connection to Yuka. Like she isn't even an interesting species like with Kurumi that would help me give some idea as to what to do with her. The only thing I could really come up with for her is that she is a gardener. I mean, she has a big scythe, she would be good at reaping vegetation with it, and she already has that goofy sun hat. So I guess similar to Yuka, she can just travel around Gensokyo in search of greenery, but she's here to cut them or something instead of admiring them. I'm sorry this isn't that good. If anyone else has a better explanation for Ellie, please tell me. Mugetsu and Gengetsu I'm putting together since they are pretty much the same. The main thing with them is that they live in their own dream world, but we had Dormi's dream world in Windows canon, so I just like the idea of throwing Mugetsu and Gengetsu into Dormi's dream world, but instead of them being the dream versions of already existing characters, they are native to the dream world and don't have any counterparts in the normal world. Although I don't really have an idea as to their relationship with Dormi, but I'll let you guys theorize on that. And that's it for talking about the PC-98 characters that could come back in Windows canon that I previously said shouldn't come back. But the video isn't over yet because I want to talk a bit about some stuff on that first video that I got some interesting feedback for that I want to cover, mainly with the characters that I say could come back, but there'll be some problems with. First off is with Yumiko. For whatever reason, I said she was way too similar to Sakuya. But while there are some similarities between them, with them both being maids and using bladed weapons, I don't think anyone will get them confused if Zoom were to bring her back. Also, we have both Aya and Hatate in Windows canon, which are two characters that probably have just as many similarities between them as Sakuya and Yumiko do, so I don't think there'll be any real confusion there. The next character is Yumemi and Chiuri, where I said that since it is implied that they are from the future, it would conflict with characters that are from the outside world like Sanai and Sumiriko, since the idea of them knowing some from the future would be a bit complex for them. But Megapig brought up a good point on the topic, saying that they could just never interact with each other, since apparently Sanai and Sumiriko never really interacted, or at least never really had any dialogue exchange, and the same would probably just happen with Yumemi and Chiuri. That's really the main stuff I want to talk about, although I do want to also mention about what I said for Sariel real quick. My idea of just giving her Lucifer's backstory from the Abrahamic religions was kind of stupid, since Sariel is an angel that also originates from the Abrahamic religions, and I should have looked more into that for a base, and where I might talk about Sariel again in a future video using her origins. In the meantime, if you want to hear more about Sariel and Touhou, then I highly recommend watching Nocti's video on her. It's really good. So that's it for the video. I'm sorry I was gone for so long from YouTube. I was working on this video over a year ago, and I hit a wall when it came to talk about Ellie, and I just never came back to it or any other video, and I just fell out of the groove of making them. But I want to try to get back into it, and hopefully with this being the first of many videos to come.